to have my pre-record ice cream, and
It's 10 a.m.
I had too much of my ice cream the other night, and I'm ice cream free.
Oh no!
So I made myself some limeade, some limonada.
Okay.
But it's gonna take a minute for the sugar to hit.
Oh, okay. I'm drinking
So-
cherry limeade, sparkling water. I just got back from a 5-mile run.
Juice, man, super juice.
I'm so tired though.
Okay, I have some things to discuss.
Hit me.
I'm available. I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. Oh, get that stretch. Okay, so I watched your AI video.
Oh yes. What'd you think? Incredible.
I mean, I don't know. I feel very so for those who have not watched Sam's AI video. This is a project Sam's been working on for a bit for the last few weeks, but also not a response to the internet fight you're in. Sam's picking a fight on the internet.
No, I'm not.
And
well, a little bit. Not a fight.
no,
just
you're
a discussion.
Come on.
I'm trying to shake up some thoughts.
No,
you know?
we can call it a little internet fight. That's fine. It's if it is a discussion, that's great because y'all are both getting the benefits out of it.
Sure.
He's selling tickets.
Something. I don't even know what his actual opinions are. I just know that he's selling stuff. So that's fine.
Anyway, so Sam over the last couple of weeks has been picking a fight with a few AI folks on Instagram. Some people are like, man, you're being an asshole. Some people are being like, you're not wrong. You're just an asshole. And some people are like, who cares? Show me wedding photos.
Well, I also have a very different perspective and experience based on the messages I get from people that aren't posting any way, shape, or form publicly. But it's, of course, there's a bias if somebody already follows me and takes the time to message me that there's probably an inherent bias trending towards support. But, I had some people being like, what are you talking about? Why is this? Where is this coming from? What is it? Why is it a big deal?
This is important. This is important context setting because we're going deep today. We're going far-reaching.
Okay.
We're going deep.
I have a train to catch, FYI, but we're good on time right now.
Train to catch. Okay, great. We can record. We can finish the recording from the train. This is our first 8-hour episode.
Mobile.
We're gonna solve the internet. So there's this. I personally have this thing, right? I take too much responsibility for things, right? Like I take on responsibility that is not my own. It's partially a trauma response. It's partially being raised very religious thing, right? Our family was part of a religion that believed heavily in missionary work and going out, like converting people to the religion. It is a like Jesus isn't going to come back until everybody hears about the good news. And that's a literal, literal thing. So, like Adventists, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, we take that one seriously. And so I, was raised to convert people to a thing and also to take responsibility for things that I didn't actually need to take responsibility for or spend my time on. I have this overactive sense of responsibility taking, and then I have accidentally applied that to my own life in a lot of different situations, in less than ideal situations. So that's my context coming to this thing, because I have found myself applying that to work, to like the internet as a whole, right? Like, no, we need to do better here, right? And like trying to take on a thing. My first big push into that was like being in minorly influential tech circles and complaining about Uber and Lyft and 1099 workers destroying worker protections and regulations and that being bad, and other people being like, well, yeah, but like, man, $5 ride across town, how cool is that? It's like, well, it's not that cool, because like a taxi is $10, right? Like that's not
Uber.
That's not a terrible thing. You know, you call a number, they show up, you drive across town, it's $10, and they're like, yeah, but $5, and it's in an app, and I'm like, okay, but it's gonna be $30, and now we're like in the consequences. So you know, like one of the people I worked for, I literally got the job because I picked a fight with him while he was in the back of an Uber on Twitter. I'm going to change his mind. Big battle. And then he and I became friends, and then he gave me a job. I never changed his mind, though. He's still riding in the back of Ubers everywhere. We all are. Such is life.
Sure.
So the other one was like VC funding of like, hey, you guys, we know like, all my friends were trying to start and found VC-backed startups, trying to raise capital, trying to, you know, just live that dream. And so I was like, no, we need to like build real businesses, guys. Let's add value, not nonsense. Like let's add value to our customers' lives. And to a certain extent, I find myself doing that with Glass too, right? Of like,
Thank God.
You know, Glass has a very view for the internet and like how we should be interacting with each other and what that model should look like, right? Like it is very different on purpose. And so all of that compounds into AI nonsense is happening right now. And we just finished NFTs effectively, right? Like NFTs are no more in the way that they were going to change the world and you know, fix everything, and holy hell, this is the new internet. That
I never understood NFTs, only because they essentially were just a rebrand of like crypto with a more stupid layer on top to slightly simplify it enough, barely, to just like be able to market it in a way that people could actually spend money, and then it just was weird. I never understood.
I mean, I can explain a little better. I had a few friends try to get real hard to get me in there.
Let's not. I'd rather never.
But
hear
then,
about
so we also have AI in the same sort of VC-backed hype cycle at its peak right now, but it's adding significantly more value than NFTs ever did, while also Apple Vision Pro was just announced. We can talk about it. I'm fine. I've read enough. We've seen enough. We've talked about it enough internally. Yeah. There are multiple different competing ideas on what the internet should be. And I'm really struggling with what my responsibility is here as a human being and as someone that's like working on these platforms and as someone who's building on the internet.
I like the word responsibility. I think that's a key one in this discussion, and it informs my perspective and intensity of reaction to certain people. I'm going to cut this part out because I don't want to get too in the weeds for things, but just so you have a little more perspective, because I don't know if I messaged you or not. The main reason I was specifically pouring my intensity.
So we're gonna spend the next 45 minutes talking about why you think you need to kill it, and what I feel like we need to kill as a company, and if this is our job or not. It's gonna be great. Boop.
Okay, just to continue on. Okay, did you have a final thought, or do you want to just wait for me to interrupt you?
No,
I'm
interrupt.
Happy to let you keep going.
You know, that was the
complete
context I wanted to set of like this is how like the things I've kind of been struggling with, and I'm seeing like these strands kind of like pull out over, you know, our conversations, my conversations with Tom, as we're working through what we're going to do for Apple Vision Pro. And like I was not excited, right? Like when they announced it, I turned it off. I was like, that looks great.
Me either. Same here.
I can't wait to never use this bullshit. Yep. I'm leaving.
I thought it was a horrible presentation, not Apple-y at all. I'm kind of shocked they're not back to the stage, because I think there's something like inherently human and raw about that. And I really hope they don't stick to this COVID era.
They're sticking with the COVID era. If you don't have Steve Jobs on the stage, you don't have the stage. Come on. You know how that.
Well, that's not true. I think, the silver-haired fox guy does great.
Craig.
He's magnetic and interesting. Craig, yes.
So, I was deeply uninspired by the idea. And, like generally, I am not wild about the vision for computing right now. Right? Like the things that make me unexcited about this are that it's happening right now, not the technology behind it. And it's taken me a really long time really long time, whatever, 2.5 weeks of actively thinking about this. 2 weeks. Well, right. Like this is my job.
And some of the veil lifting on the true experience of what they are pitching here, because I thought like certainly this is more along the Facebook lines of like your outer world is caught with cameras being projected back in, but it's it's probably not like they had it rendered in the presentation. It doesn't look like reality. But the more I read about it, the more it's like, no, it looks like you're just wearing a pair of glasses or goggles, and you lift your eyes up through the viewfinder, you see your regular world, you put it down, it is completely immersive. And I'm like, okay, if they pulled that off, which it sounds like they did, that is quite a shift, the entire experience of what we're familiar with. So it does change what the potential possibilities.
When did you get your first computer?
Aside from the fact that apparently it's very, very heavy. It was a used, I think it was a 386 processor. Yeah. I don't think it was a compact. I can't remember the brand, but I want to say I was like 7 or 8. It was had Windows 3.1 or something on it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
My first real computer that I really, really used was maybe 2 years after that, and it was a Mac, and I cannot remember the model. But
my dad stole. He stole. He stole the old computers that were getting upgraded at the radio station that he ran. Like his morning show host and program director got new computers, so they got nicer compact things or something like that. And we got their old like 200 megahertz, could barely run SimTown or SimCity 3, whatever. But we got them for our bedrooms, and that was like. My dad, worked for the church, so he wasn't getting paid money, but he knew the system and the edges that he could work, so he could like have the company or the radio station pay for his T1 line at our house way before that was a thing that was easily accessible, because he could record stuff from like home instead of needing to go to the office.
Amazing.
And then they'd pay the bill or whatever. So we got internet that was fast enough to support my brother and I also getting on the internet at a very young age. We were like 11 and had internet in our rooms, which in hindsight was like, what are you doing? But I remember being a kid and wanting computers on my face, right? And like wanting things to float and wanting... wanting to interact with computers like Iron Man does in the movies, or a Minority Report, right? Like when Tom Cruise is like flipping around the stuff and like editing the film, that sort of thing.
Totally.
Like the dream.
Yes. I'm trying to remember the brand, but I actually owned a VR headset. It was like $450, and I think I was able to afford it by selling probably not totally legal types of like software on eBay.
Yeah. Pirated Russian
for some kind of cracked something, and I was able to like scrape together $400 or something, and I bought a VR headset when I was probably 14, like a real one that you would plug into your computer, and the experience was a projection of your whatever was on your machine and it also had RCA imports, so you could also just take out from a VCR or DVD player video out, and it would basically try and trick you into thinking you're sitting in like the middle back row of a movie theater. There was no peripheral cover at all, but it was like this, and you could see so many pixels, but like the relative size of it to your eyes, given the distance and everything, it kind of felt like you were watching a big screen movie in a theater. It was trying to achieve that. And I remember I was still young enough that I was building like forts with my friends in living rooms, and we would like set up the VR headset as the security mechanism to like see through crappy VHS camera who was coming down the hall or something.
Yeah.
That was my first experience with
that's
VR.
Lovely, right? Like that's this is the stuff I've been dreaming of forever. Since I was a kid. It was like easily the thing that I saw and I was like, yep, computers are going to be wearable. They're going to be interactive. They're going to exist in a different way. Now that we're here as an adult and we are going on week 2 of hazardous air from forest fires because we, cooked our planet by, you know, like decisions our grandparents' generation made cooked our planet. We're just like born into it. Here we are. Like there's nothing that feels bad, right? You know, like and wanting to connect more with people and spend more time outside and more time interacting with people. It's like, oh, this version of computing doesn't fit with how I want to spend my day-to-day time, right? But it is still the thing I've been excited about my entire life and wanted. How do I square those two things, right? Or, you know, like NFTs for all the things that were dumb about them, right? You know, like it was always the bigger fool, like rug pull, let's make a lot of money. It was a very bad system. The technology behind it is not nearly as special as they said it was. There's not anything there. It also did get a ton of people on the internet caring about rights ownership and who owns what and fractional ownership and where these things live and who owns them and how, right? Like that's stuff I care about. And it's like, okay, was it worth it? Like, you know, probably not, right? Like trillions of dollars of regular people's money have just like been vaporized by the Winklevoss twins and friends, right? Like I am concerned that, you know, that we're repeating that same hype cycle with AI and it's going to be the last one for a while because of everything, all the changes and shifts going on in VC. One of the largest VC funds, Tiger Global, had nearly 700 investments in 2021 and 2022. That's you know, like that's a massive amount. They were large deals. They are not a small fund. They, you know, they have billions under management. In 2023 so far, they have like less than 30 to give you an idea of how much
money's dried up.
Well, so they still have the money, right? LPs have still committed them. They've still done the capital calls. They have that money under management. But like how they can accurately and safely deploy it doesn't exist anymore. And so like the models have shifted and we're going to go through a big old shift over the next 5 years on the venture capital realm, right? Like how
so a lot of change is in store. How does this tie back to responsibility and what you think, whose responsibility is it and what's wrong with maybe taking a stand? I hate to say it that way because it's so early and the ground is shifting so quickly. It's like as soon as you stand anywhere, it doesn't matter anymore because things are shifting.
Well, I mean, I bring up the VC thing specifically because their last big bet at the moment is AI. And so I think AI, this hype cycle is going to have a little bit longer supported venture-backed life cycle than NFTs do.
I would think.
Because
it's genuinely useful. In a lot of ways, like it is overhyped.
I disagree, right? Like I don't find it useful. There are engineers who love it for coding and like helping them code or like get 80% of the way there and they do the final 20%. I understand that, like, you know, the relative difference of doing your own Stack Overflow search versus a ChatGPT one is pretty limited, right? But like you know, the stories of lawyers who like, oh yeah, here are the cases I pulled, and the judge being like, these are half made up, bro.
That's
right. Like
exactly.
That's not useful. Right. And I think that we are going to destroy the entire usefulness of the internet because we have given we've ceded power to like 4 or 5 internet companies that organize the internet. And those companies are now ceding that to robots that don't provide accurate information. And other robots are scanning for, right? Like, do you remember when Google was useful? Because I do. I do.
Yeah. It's amazing to see that DuckDuckGo actually has caught up so much that it is as useful as Google used to be.
Yeah.
I keep going back every time. I'm like, it's not a Google. DuckDuckGo is like, boom, top result. There it is.
Every time.
It's so
wild,
incredible.
Right? And like Google is.
Yeah. Google has, that is evidence that Google has actively destroyed itself or chosen to make itself worse for the sake of
right. And they just killed, like, they just sold Google
cash.
domains to Squarespace for like $180 million, which for a $1 trillion company is like chump change, but they're doing it anyway, doing like wild. So I'm really concerned about like the quality of information that's about to be on the internet. It's already been a mess, but it's about to get way worse.
I totally agree.
You know?
I totally 100%. Yeah, especially with the politics ramping up again in the next election cycle. But I will say, so we started this, and I do want to circle back to make sure we cover everything you had in mind. We started this conversation with you mentioning my AI video, and just to describe, it's going to be hard not having visuals in front of us for anybody who hasn't seen it or has never used any type of AI generating tool like DALL-E or any Stable Diffusion iteration or whatever, or Midjourney specifically, which is the one that most people probably have been exposed to because stylistically its data set, which is generally thought to be unethically scraped from the internet, is tuned in a way that is very, it taps into some like emotional sense in its renderings that people just really like. So what I've been able to do, and this is going to touch a little bit on, I think, the usefulness of where AI comes into play. I haven't coded anything since I graduated college, and I learned in C++. I was the very last year before they switched everything over to Java. I really never programmed anything after graduating, and I really wanted to have so with Midjourney, let's start there. The way you interact with this tool right now, the AI bot or whatever you want to call it, a lot of people aren't using it as a tool. They're using it as a way to generate bullshit. Yep. Okay. Process of interacting with it is done through Discord, which is just an app that is a really advanced version of like Facebook groups or something like that. It's just an aggregator where you can have a bunch of different groups that have really advanced bots and tools. And I kind of hate Discord. I don't really use it that much myself, but you can essentially have like automated chat bots and tools that you can discuss, and it helps manage and curate the space and create an experience for people that are in a group. Midjourney has its own giant group where you can literally see a public feed of everything everybody's rendering, the prompts that they're using. It's kind of chaotic, but also kind of really interesting. You can learn really quickly, and it's just crazy. But you can also create an dedicated private interaction with the Midjourney bot yourself and have your own private discussion with it, where you type in a text prompt saying, hey, generate a picture of, whatever, a pony with the head of a horse. And you can give it stylistic cues based on other established famous photographers and other people that it's likely to have scraped.
Horses and horses.
Sorry, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't thinking that through in any. Sorry. So I'm just trying to be very clear in discussing what the interaction is like. So you physically have to hit / type the thing. You can type. You kind of have to learn a little bit. It's not hard at all if you've ever done any type of computing at all on like a text prompt in Terminal or something. But some people think it's like coding. There's a few like just syntax things you can learn to like give it an aspect ratio. But one of the interesting aspects of it is you can send it a URL to an image and ask it to weight the render between, it's got kind of, they picked arbitrary numbers. I think it's between like 0.1 and 2 or something. 2 is the maximum amount of weight and consideration of what it's rendering based on your original source image. You can even send it 2 separate URLs and ask it to blend the images, which is kind of crazy and interesting. But at the end of the day, I was like, man, I wish I could quickly send a photo directly from a session that I'm shooting right to Midjourney and have it render something that comes right back up on my phone to give me a potentially new direction to take something if I'm ever stuck or looking for inspiration or just want to see if it comes up with something useful. Not to recreate exactly what it's giving me. Maybe if it's that good and if it's that close to the environment that I'm using, sure, why not? It's never going to be exactly the same anyway, because I have a real life execution of anything that you're starting with is always going to be different. But anyway, I was able to figure out how to do this using a bunch of unofficial Midjourney APIs that exist now that allow you to interact with it through basically the tools that I ended up utilizing were mostly Python code, a little bit of JavaScript, and then a webhook service, all kind of leveraged through Zapier, which is an automated non-coding platform. But there is code, snippets of code you can insert into Zapier workflows. Again, I haven't coded in forever. Yeah. And I was like, how am I going to do this? So I just went to ChatGPT and I said, can you write a Python? Here's the JSON code from a webhook. How can can you write a Python script to send this, blah, blah, blah. And it did it. And I was like, okay, I guess I just copy this and paste it here, change some of the variables, and oh my God, it fucking works. We're talking like 50 lines of code that I would have had to literally, I had to relearn a little bit just to understand the logic of what was happening, but it was not complex at all. And that's where I think the big wedge in the sand is these tools being used for misinformation and inaccurate, confidently inaccurate stuff spilling out into the world, convincing people of one thing, but with literal logic, like things that are related to coding and math and formatting of numbers and spreadsheets. I think it's incredible, and it's hard to see how it's not useful in those.
No, there was a big list, and yeah, sure, the misinformation, but shit, it can format an Excel spreadsheet for you. We have enough.
All I'm saying is I spent.
This is the same week that our good old buddy Joe Rogan is spewing bullshit with our RFK. And going hard on a 3-hour long anti-vax.
Yeah, what was that
interview? And he's not getting any pushback from Spotify ever again. And that's the misinformation we have already. We don't also need computers writing it for us.
Right? Is it worth the trade-off of
information?
I totally understand that.
So all of this.
But they have demonstrated, the founders of ChatGPT at least, have demonstrated a willingness to
Sam Altman is full of shit. That guy. Yeah, he was a partner at Y Combinator, the VC accelerator that has spawned 1,000 demons. Right? They have backed Uber, the ones that destroyed all taxi regulations. They backed Airbnb, the ones who have destroyed housing regulations and housing prices.
I gotta say, I don't know who was really loving all the taxi. I mean, DC didn't even allow, they didn't have regulation in place for cabs to accept credit cards until 5 years ago. You used to have to get in and stop at an ATM on the way.
I'm not saying that they were good. I'm saying it's good that they weren't fed poverty wages while dragging people around in their car without any legal protections.
I know. I have discussions quite often with Uber drivers, and it continues to astound me how many different literal scams they pull on new drivers to get them to work an insane amount, promised certain bonuses.
So these are right.
They get completely screwed on the payouts.
I don't want to get too stuck.
I know. At the end of the day, I was able to create a seamless experience where I could be on my camera, connected. All I need is a hotspot, either through my phone, a dedicated hotspot, which I paid for, and it works really well, or any Wi-Fi. I can go to any image on my camera, hit the set button, and it sends a low-res JPEG directly to Midjourney that then gets dumped to my phone after about 2 or 3 minutes as 4 different variation renders that I can look at those things. And that I never could have done that without these tools. And I think that it's also a really ethical, okay way to use something like an AI tool to just reinforce and almost like a collaborative experience of taking this output. And it doesn't have to be Midjourney. I just started there because it's, like I said, sort of the app that has the most stylistic favor. But you could even do this, with the model you trained yourself. And photographers in particular, established ones, should be able to eventually start putting together their own AI models using open source tools and in theory, start generating stuff that is built upon their own work. I don't know. It's an interesting way to approach the problem that I'm really excited about, and was also doubly excited that I just solved the problem because I know nobody else has done this yet.
I'm trying to figure out like where it feels weird to me, right? Because like I sent you a photo or two that I had taken this last week, and you ran it through, and like one of them was that was me attempting to be excited about it because I could tell you were very excited, and I did not want to bring an umbrella to your brainstorm. Or a thunderstorm to your parade.
I don't care if that output is, if this fails as an idea and it doesn't actually ever generate any useful inspiration or like actually a part of my work. I don't even care. I was just like, I got to get this to work because I've sunk so many freaking hours into it. But okay, continue.
Right, like it sent back a thing and it reminded me that I needed to buy a fog machine.
Yeah,
and then you said, well, or atmosphere spray.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I forgot that existed. So like there was a level of inspiration that happened.
There it is.
Right? Like, and now,
that's what I'm talking about.
The real inspiration also came from you saying atmosphere spray, right?
That never would have occurred if we had not looked at that actual output.
But would it have happened, you know, like when or where would have this happened again? Right. You know, because like, I'm always going to have bought a fog machine at some point or atmosphere spray at some point this year for my self-portrait project, right? Like it is a simple, easy...
Totally.
It's an easy week.
You can borrow. Be careful with the atmosphere spray. I had one sitting in my lens case. It's just a glass case. It doesn't get direct sunlight, nothing. And it was just sitting there for like a while. And it's just randomly decided to start leaking. And a lot of the lenses near it were like face down, and they were just old lenses. They weren't very valuable really, but it just, careful with the atmosphere spray, folks. Keep it somewhere separate.
I don't have nearly as many lenses just laying around without caps as you do.
Well, I'd probably be fine in any case. Here's the thing with anything like that, you're right. It's like, well, that probably would have come up somewhere sometime, and you're right. That's why it's important to develop any tool, if you want to describe it that way. I think it is a tool, and use any tool, including something as simple, bring it back to actual stuff in the real world, a lens, right? Or a bag that you buy, anything like that. It has to be now put into practice and then assessed over time. Maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, maybe years over time to see if you actually can feel the change in how you're approaching your work because you're getting extra help from AI kind of nudging you in different directions. This was the same problem that I went through with the Prism. I bought that thing as just on a whim. I played in a band called Prisms, and we were trying to figure out our first album cover, and I was on Amazon, went to the teacher's shop, found a freaking random prism, and was like, okay, we'll do something with this for the album cover or whatever. We ended up not even using it. It's out of my desk for 6 months. I just started bringing it with me to sessions and thought I could use it to create a reflection, but I didn't really have a sense of anything else about it. And it took a long time of just randomly trying it in a bunch of different scenarios before I realized where it had a use case and where it was predictably going to be useful for me. And then it became a real idea, a real thing that I could use as a tool. So that's why it's like, just build out and get it as seamless and easy in your process as possible. And then really dedicate to use it. Because half of these things, it's just like, you just to pay attention and to use the new lens you bought or the new prism or this new AI thing, whatever. Then you have to be honest with yourself. Is this actually making my life better or not? And I think most people, that's where they fall off they just get into a flow of using something just for the sake of it. And they don't actually, there's no actual change or improvement in the work. So anyway, that was a long-winded pushback against the atmosphere spray.
It's gonna be great. Love atmosphere. So at Glass we're slow theoretically, right? Like we ship a lot for how small of a team we are, but we're still relatively slow compared to a hype cycle.
I love that. I think that's a healthy thing.
Team
slow, but actually do ship. It is the key. Yeah, slow and not shipping ever is the problem. Yeah.
So we had, we have people reach out all the time or pitch us ideas all the time. When we launched, it was at the height of NFT bullshit, right? the Bitcoin was forever high. ETH, Ethereum had just like passed a couple of grand, and people were like, "Oh, you guys gotta do this." Right? Like if I search NFT,
my stellar lumens are doing right now. How are these guys doing?
My God. If I, so like if I searched my email, I would have 50 emails of people reaching out and being like, you need to do NFT
Support
something.
NFTs.
Like turn glass into the photo NFT marketplace of the world. And we were like, no, absolutely not. Right. For a lot of reasons. One, we're slow. And so by the time that we pivot entirely to NFTs, and the NFT market was already dead, right? Like by the time that we'd launch, we'd be launching into a very down, grim market where FTX and Binance were about to steal billions of dollars from people and disappear overnight.
I just heard Binance is about to maybe go under as well, which is
they're all going under because they're all selling unregulated.
Binance was beautiful. I loved their interface. Anyway,
oh my God, stop it! And so
it was really well designed.
We ignored that purposefully, right? Like didn't go in at all. Same with AI of like, we spent a lot of time waiting, right? It's been out and popular for months now. By the time that we actually release something to the entire platform that uses AI, it'll have been out and hard for like a year, right? So we will have missed the entire hype cycle of AI, but we will have used it in a way that makes sense for us and is providing value, as opposed to we crammed it in here, here's your chat bot, right? Like Snapchat is just like, talk to an AI. It's like, well, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I know.
When you reverse engineer the my AI Snapchat thing, it's just ChatGPT telling you to be your best friend. Like it has like 4 prompts, and one of them is be best friends. Don't tell them you're trying to be their best friend.
Cool.
That's it. Right? Like
gross.
that's pointless and grim. As opposed to like, hey, we have a ton of photos. Let's like show things better, right? Like manage search better. And so like we're gonna have AI powered search at some point on an Explore feed in Glass in the next, I would say probably next couple of months. Cool. I need to tease it. I need to write the teaser. So this is me pre-teasing it. And it's going to be nice, but it's also coming with a feed of me curating the best images on Glass any given day, right? So like it'll have a human curated feed, and then you'll be able to search for whatever you want. And those two things combined, both human and leveraging a very powerful AI data set, will provide like a significantly better search experience on Glass than we have had before. And so like that's exciting, and we did that, right? We're doing that. It took time from like, oh, this is nonsense, to okay, here's a use case that it makes sense for us. Let's go forth and do that. I am curious about the intersection of, in the same idea, thinking about Apple Vision Pro, right? Like how would Glass look on Apple Vision Pro? Should we should we actually say screw it and like go try to raise some fundraising to go all in on Apple Vision Pro because it's a new market and it's a new thing?
It's like a new format of visual consumption.
It's new everything, right?
That apparently the camera they use to so 2 things. One, there's I think a still photo thing they have in mind for it, but apparently the demos that I most heard about were like live video in like courtside at a basketball game, and it was like you were actually there, which is pretty crazy and weird. But what was crazy about it is Apple built their own cameras to be able to capture what they needed, and I hesitate to think that Apple's going to build business-to-business cameras to capture this kind of stuff, but I could see them.
Well, there are the 2 cameras, right? So there's the cameras to record the large interactive events, such as a baseball game or Major League Soccer, that sort of event. But then there's also the cameras that are built into the headset that are taking spatial photos and spatial videos, which is just a 3D rendering.
Oh, that's
of
the creepy
scene.
demo they showed of the dad.
Yeah,
at
that's
the
the
party.
terrible one with the dad looking at his kids. And like they showed that apparently, like that actual scene, that photo, the video that he took with the headset is the demo that you saw. You know, like if you were one of the 30 tech journalists, you saw that demo of the kids having the birthday party. Grim stuff, right? But there's no way that they're going to keep that.
It's okay. This kids could see the dad's fake eyes being reprojected through the headset.
We're going to ignore that creepy bit.
Eyes.
We're going to ignore that creepy bit because that's not the real thing, right? Like,
I agree.
It's going to be built into the iPhone Pro Max. If not 15, 16, right? Like that level of camera and that level of photo is going to be built into it. There's no way that they can try to make that happen without building it into the iPhone, right? Like that's the next level of like take these things, but the real way to view them is going to be with our headset. You got to buy our headset.
Yeah.
Then Apple Vision will have come out, you know, a cheaper version that's under $2,000, and then you know the 4 years there'll be the SEs. So there's like this whole market that's coming up with multiple different types of photos, and so it's like Instagram's going to purposefully miss this boat because Zuckerberg will never develop a thing for
pretty interesting.
Apple Vision Pro. And you know, like historically, the other competitors in our space are not the most technically advanced at developing large software. They are Web 2.0 companies that have stuck around because they have a very strong monthly recurring revenue, because photographers don't want to potentially lose a photo from 2007.
Okay.
And so it's like there's like a pretty obvious market here, obvious technology that's developing. You know, we've been Apple App of the Day. We have contacts there. We're close with Gruber. There are like a lot of reasons for us to go all in on Apple Vision Pro and just, you know, like shoot for the moon. But then we have to talk about the like responsibility to ourselves and to our community. And like, if that's what's best for it, and if that's what we want to be building, and like, do we want to help support this version of computing, right? Like this strap it to our face. And I don't know.
There's so many things I would love to discuss about this. One, I would like to bring it back to what you mentioned about being slow and the fact that you're one of the few photo only, you know, photo first, photographer first oriented companies that I'm aware of that launched, you know, subscription only, like right out of the gate. It seemed like almost everybody had a free option, or anybody like that I've ever come across of any volume. Because I'm thinking back to my Patreon, I wonder, do you all ever have a sense of where the slowness or okay, we need to ship something, that back and forth oscillation intercepts with the number of people actively subscribed? Do you ever pay attention or use that as sort of a guide and a mechanism for we should speed things up? We have some breathing room now. We can slow down. Like as you're just sort of is there any type of back and forth? And do you think that is a positive or negative thing? If there is something of a relationship with that, because for me, Patreon there definitely is, and I find it very motivating and positive.
Yeah, 100%. We don't really view it as like, oh, we gotta ship this because we gotta juice our numbers, that sort of thing, right?
Exactly.
Like everything is towards growth, but how it goes towards growth is either retention and happiness, right? Like the community that we already have, keeping them paying us and thrilled with us, or acquiring new members, right? So our two, those are like the two buckets that all of our features fall in. Either we're going to try to acquire more members with this feature, or we're going to make our current members happier, right? So like
I love that.
Camera lens feeds and camera feeds, those things, like that was very much a both bucket, but it lays out the case that this is a very different type of platform than Instagram, right? Like it's for inspiration, it's for exploration, as opposed to it's a marketing channel focused outward.
This, and the word that keeps coming back to my head though, when like feeling out the glass experience versus anybody else's, or whatever, is there is an accountability aspect from your audience for all. And I keep thinking of something like Instagram or Facebook, where there is literally no accountability. And we kind of had this discussion with Ryan on our podcast with him, where he was so confused about, it just didn't make sense to him why he couldn't trust that his work would be seen, why it wouldn't continue to get so bad that literally virtually nobody would ever see his work, because it doesn't serve the platform for him to stop posting. Like, why would they do this? And it makes no sense, because they have no accountability to their audience whatsoever, versus a company that is almost entirely tied from the start, from the fabric
very
of the company, to a monetary connection. It could be something other than money, but right now that's the easiest thing to think of, I think. But that, I think, is just such a healthier approach to that relationship between an audience and users of a service and the service itself. It's never going to be quite as profitable, but the experience long term, that slow, deliberate approach in this thing for you all, like I feel like the experience long term potentially does actually make more money. I could be wrong about that, but it does feel right. This also, like, I keep thinking of really in big, important words like accountability, and you mentioned responsibility. And one of the things I just want to make sure we get back to is the fact that in AI, that world of AI, first of all, I think if you make the wrong decision about your Apple Vision Pro integration, your audience will hold you accountable, and you'll find out real quick whether that was a good or bad decision. And there's probably a way to get a feel for that ahead of time before you try and raise and lose a bunch of money. But the responsibility that I feel is being a photographer, just having observed and felt the temptation myself to do random AI peppering of things, or like many photographers, shifting entirely to just, now my feed is just AI photos. An underlying assumption, if people know you already, is that, these are either mostly a photo, or we can trust them to have done enough work that it's not just a pure render from a text prompt. They're a photographer. That's not what this is. But no, many photographers are just completely only showing the exact output, not even bothering to create composites or any extra work whatsoever. Even ones that do extra work, it's like not much. And so it's just sort of, I feel like there is an inherent responsibility to established photographers, where you're known as that and branded as that, especially, to do more than just say, hashtag AI somewhere in the caption, or not share your prompt and not have some transparency about just how easy this is a lot of time. And if it is more complex, maybe you don't have to share entirely what your workflow is, but give something because it's not photography. At the end of the day, that's where I feel very responsible in the world of photography. And I guess it hasn't really touched weddings so much yet, because nobody's asking photographers to AI render them in their wedding venue or something like that. But
so what? I agree with all of that, right? Like, you should be transparent. You should. I would not do that as a photographer, right? Like, I'm not going to start uploading AI images to Glass. I'm not going to. Oh God, can you imagine? I'm not going to say who. Someone has asked for an AI category, and I'm like, no, I don't want to encourage that.
Here's something interesting. Somebody mentioned in my YouTube video of the AI video, it's in the comments there, this is so sad. Like, photographers are going to have to start saying when it's a photo versus an AI. And I did think for a second, like, that has already played out before and been totally fine. This is
you're wrong.
What happened with film photographers.
I read this comment. You were wrong. It's not what happened with film cameras, because they still took the photo.
Yeah. Oh, I know, but I don't have a problem with being a digital photographer having to say, I don't know what the terminology is going to be. I don't think you can just say photographer anymore, because it's been so distorted by people just using AI and calling it a photo. But I think you could say, real photos only, or I don't think you want to say
real photos only.
Yeah, that's lame. But something better will come along, and that is where, film photographers, we discussed with Ryan, they actually have an advantage here because there is an inherent assumption that if you are saying this is film.
No, I agree with that. It's just the comparison that film to digital doesn't work from digital to AI, right? Because you're still doing the creative act yourself versus telling a computer to do it for you. That's why
I agree.
That's where
I totally agree. Maybe I wasn't clear in the response that I wrote then. I was just talking about the having to label yourself of what is actually occurring here as not being a sad thing. It's fine if some terminology surfaces that says in a nice one-word digestible way that, hey, this is not AI, this is a real photo. I'm fine with having to accept that and say this is real. That's extra work, and it feels a little weird in the beginning.
Yeah, it is telling that one of the main sticking points with the current Writers Guild of America strike with the 5 large studios is the studios being unwilling to say that they won't generate scripts with AI. That's bad, right? This is all of this is happening at the same time. We're losing ability to tell real information anymore or what photos are real, and everyone's just like YOLO, and it feels bad.
Do you think there's an opportunity for people that stay the course and do things manually in honing their craft and developing their vision as a writer, their vision as a photographer? Because the more you stick to that path and the more everybody else gets stuck in the infinite cycle of just leveraging the same AI tools, just like with Midjourney, it has such a distinct look that you can tell, like now, everybody that has had any amount of exposure to it can say, oh, that's clearly a render. And so if everybody's doing that, the people that are writing stories directly from their actual brain or pulling in, inspirational assets from all kinds of places, maybe AI included, but still using their brain as the filter to get it out into the world, they're going to look even more differentiated. Maybe not, but until their new idea gets absorbed by AI and then gets added to the data set and the process continues. But
maybe there's not a ton of money in, everyone's like, oh, well, just artisanal now, right? Like just be an artisan, right? Like make your very nice ceramics, charge a lot of money for your ceramics, make very nice film photos, charge a lot of money for your prints, that sort of thing. But it's like there's not a living in that. I can't make a living selling my ceramics at this time. I can't make a living selling my essays at this time. So I don't know. Like capitalism is not a big fan of rewarding the people who are doing things slowly and meticulously. They are very much not that. So I don't, yes, there is, but for how many people, right? There are people who can make a living just being a film portrait photographer who are just taking really nice portraits of people and selling prints. But how many people, right? Like how many writers can make a living with writing? And as we continue to make it easier to do things and easier to get blog posts, right? It's definitely happened at least twice this year when I've pitched a potential client and been like, hey, this is how much it would cost. This is the services. This is how it works out, couple of months, couple of grand, let's go. It's more than a couple of grand, but like you get, and he's like, yeah, no, pass. I'm using, and then like they release whatever it is. And it was clearly written by a computer. And like, is that clear to us because we're writers, or is it clear to everyone?
Right. That's a good point.
Right. Like I can tell if Stefan has used ChatGPT to help write a first pass of a blog post before passing it on to me for editing and refinement and editing. Can other people, right? Could I just publish it, and would people notice? Or would they just be like, man, Daniel was really tinny today, right? Like our release notes are like a ridiculous deep dive into my childhood trauma or dumb jokes every time. And it's like, how many of those would we need to feed this model before it could spit it out? And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't. And so I don't. It's
a moving target. It's going to be crazy. I've also been reading up. I lurk a couple of teaching subreddits, and there's so much debate and discussion going on about how teachers should be approaching detection of AI, in writing of student essays and all this. And I kept thinking like, well, this is a solvable problem. Imagine an OS level embed of something like an AI, a ChatGPT, whatever, that could monitor the actual process of an entire paper being written, and then give a likelihood of, this was definitely mostly written in AI, or this was actually made by something. Now, I understand that feels a little bit like, you're being monitored or something like that. But
just came up with a computer cop to solve the problem of a thing we don't have to release, right? Like we don't have to do this. Right, like it doesn't have to be released. It doesn't have to be a tool that's continually funneled millions and millions of dollars every day to be out there.
Yeah,
it does. Like we don't have to create a computer cop to then make sure that the kids are writing their essays. Right, like
I don't know. In a backwards way, it might actually become because kids plagiarized all the time and continued to even. Without using any AI tools. Like it's a thing that exists that hasn't been monitored and is just sort of best guessed into, this sounds a little too good. The use case, I feel like, and it's just built into Google Docs, and it just dumps a general number of percentage chance that this was, authentically authored by this human versus, no, they wrote this.
Wrong.
Yeah.
All the time. They get it wrong all the time.
Oh, I know they do. I know, but that's where I'm talking about actually monitoring the entire process of an entire paper being written would be useful. I'm just spitballing ideas here. But it's a solvable problem.
Yes, just make a computer cop and then you're set. All right. Well, Sam, I am very
I gotta say, maybe it's time that there are some computer cops out there. Jeez, so far it hasn't worked. All the internet has led to right now is everything we've just talked about, which is kind of a shit show.
So let's enforce it with man.
I'm not talking about cop. I'm talking about, just a tool that is able to itself analyze like the entire process of something being created and then say, a best guess, percentage chance, whatever. Who knows how you measure these kinds of things, but I feel like it's doable.
It's a terrible plan.
Okay. Well,
just awful. I'll introduce you to the VCs if you want it, but wow. Man, you could totally raise on that.
I think we should, circle back to having a conversation about how crypto is actually going to save everything, because having a public ledger to verify something is real or not does seem like a viable.
I own the Mona Lisa now.
No, not that, but an original like publishing point for some photo that needs to be verified as real, you could do on a blockchain like easily, and but there needs to be like not a billion different coins and not a ton of weird money involved. Anywho.
Well, we didn't get any good answers.
I'm excited. I have a session later today. I'm going to use my little AI workflow to see if I can, if you notice over time a change in my work for the better, I got to say, this might be a tool that is genuinely useful, and I'm going to package it up and sell it for $1 billion to, no, it's,
okay. I have one final little bit before we sign off.
Okay.
If you have noticed an improvement in my street photography over the last few weeks and have been like, wow, Daniel's really showing out, turning up. Mm-hmm. It's because I bought Stephen Shore's complete works, Uncommon Places, and have just been looking at it a lot. I've just been looking at photo books. I've just been finding inspiration.
Beautiful.
So my question is, why don't you just buy more photo books instead of an AI?
I know, and that's where this whole thing still feels messy and weird to me. You mentioned that earlier, like something feels weird, and it's the fact that you are looking at. Okay, the AI is just giving me 4 variations of my scene, but it's doing that built on millions and millions of photos that that were unethically scraped from the internet that I haven't personally manually gone through and looked at. So I'm getting. There's this extra layer in the whole process that's still kind of sketch. But that's why
also another bummer.
Building out the work. What's that?
Well, I mean, the weird part about this is you are getting averages, right?
True.
Like you are getting the averages of those millions of photos turned into one. Here it is.
Right.
And the thing that makes your work so special is that it is very much not an average.
But that's where, oh, there's a cute little bunny in my yard. That's where the process of building something like this out and getting used to it could still be very beneficial, even if it's not Midjourney as the thing that I end up using, and it's something else that is open source, that is a model built on just my photos that I've made before. Boom, that solves that problem. That
sure does.
I mean, I'm kind of building a circle of my own work, but not if I'm, again, not aiming to recreate exactly what this model gave me as an idea, but it maybe reminds me of something that I haven't done in a while, as far as like a pose that I used to use 5 years ago and I kind of faded away from, or some perspective or lens at it, who knows what. But I think it's all very good.
Well, as always, I love that we can clearly state exactly how we feel for an hour and feel like we ended up in a more fucked up place than we started.
Okay.
I appreciate
All right,
you.
I do have to go catch a train.
That was great. Yeah, go catch your train.
1,